Hello and welcome. This video is for readers of my novel Rhea Silvia, which is the first book in the first Vestals of Rome trilogy. This series covers the legendary founding and the first years of the Kingdom of Rome and focuses on the Vestal priestesses that were prominent during this time period. Many of the characters and legends that you'll read about in my books are depicted on ancient Roman coins, so I wanted to show you some coins from my collection that feature elements from each novel. And just a heads up, there are spoilers ahead, so you'll want to finish reading before you watch. You'll find it more interesting that way too, since you'll be able to see how certain elements on these coins have been dramatized. So let's get started. Readers of Rhea Silvia will know that the central character, Rhea, is very aware, very proud of her royal lineage, and that lineage has its roots deep in the epic story of Troy. This is the reverse of a 2nd century-ish coin that was actually minted in the city of Troy as it existed in the imperial age of Rome. What we see here is the figure of a man named Ilos. Ilos was the founder of Troy, which in Greek is called Ilion. So just as Rome will ultimately take the name of its founder, Romulus, Ilion took the name of its founder, Ilos. And of course, this is why the Iliad, Homer's famous poem about the Trojan War, is called the Iliad. It's also why another name for Rhea Silvia is Ilia. So here we see Ilos standing, sacrificing at an altar, one that we can imagine burns with the fire of Trojan Vesta, and it's happening before a statue of Athena. The legend goes that Ilos was looking for a place to found his city when a statue of Athena, called the Palladium, was thrown down from the heavens, and so he founded Troy in the spot where it landed. So, if we move forward, everything is fine in Troy. The people are happily sacrificing to their gods at altars like this, going about their business when the Trojan War breaks out. Now, why that happens and what happens during it is a huge story in itself. Suffice it to say, it's a long war, and it only ends with the trickery of a Greek soldier named Odysseus, who has the idea of wheeling a giant horse to the gates of Troy. Thinking the Greeks have given up, the Trojans open the gates and drag the horse into the city. What they don't know is that there are Greek soldiers hiding inside the horse. So this image you're seeing here is the reverse of a 3rd century BCE coin that has an Amazon on the front. This is not the Trojan horse per se, but the Amazons did fight on the side of the Trojans during the war, and this does look fairly Trojan horsey to me, so that's why I've included it here. It's actually a Greek coin. Anyway, the Greeks file out of the horse, open the gates of the city to the larger Greek army, and basically rain hellfire down on Troy, setting it on fire, killing the men, taking the women as slaves. Now, in the chaos, as Troy is burning, some people do manage to flee the city. One of these people is a kinsman of the Trojan king, and he's called Aeneas. He manages to flee Troy with his little son and his elderly father, taking with them the household gods of Troy, including embers from the sacred hearth fire. And we can see that very famous scene on the reverse of this little coin, also minted in Troy around the middle of the 2nd century CE. You can see Aeneas here, holding hands with his young son, Aeneas, and here you can see he's actually carrying his elderly father, Anchises. Aeneas is looking back, we can assume seeing the awful sight of his city burning. Of course, this event is the prologue of the book Rhea Silvia, and these names, Aeneas and Ascanius, they'll carry through for the rest of the book in the trilogy here. It's a really emotional scene, isn't it? Because this family and Aeneas' followers, they are basically refugees. So where they go and what happens to them along the way, again, that's a big story with some important players. And you can read about some of that in Virgil's epic, the Aeneid. But for our purposes here, it's enough to know that Aeneas chooses to follow his destiny, to follow the will of the gods, to keep moving with the intention of building his own city. And I think that idea is represented in this very pretty reverse coin of the Empress Faustina. This is a sestertius, so it's a nice big coin, and it shows the goddess carrying the eternal flame and the palladium. I've always thought the movement in this impression, the way it looks like the goddess is moving forward, to me it captures that idea of the religion and the culture of Troy, making that journey from Troy to Italy, which is so important. So, during this journey, Aeneas has a prophetic dream. The gods come to him and tell him that when and where he sees a white sow with 30 piglets, that is when and where he is to build his city. And that's exactly what happens. Aeneas is wandering along the coast when he sees a white sow with 30 piglets. And it's that legendary sow that's shown on the reverse of this coin, a denarius, from the 1st century CE, so again from the time of the empire. It's actually a coin of Titus. Below her body, you'll see 3 piglets representing a total of 30, one for each 10. Now, Aeneas, of course, recognizes the omen and builds his city called Lavinium on that spot in Latium, in Italy, thus successfully bringing the Trojan household gods and Vesta to this new land. But it doesn't stop there, because these men have the blood of founders in them, and so 30 years later, the same number of piglets in the White Sow's litter, Aeneas, who is now a man, founds his own city called Alba Longa. Some say it was named in honor of the White Sow, Alba, albino. Regardless, Alba Longa is another very important city, and if you're counting, we've now seen the founding of 3 cities, Troy, Lavinium, and Alba Longa. Aeneas eventually has a son and calls him Silvius. Silvius succeeds his father as king of Alba Longa, and it's from him that we get this great Silvian dynasty of kings from which our title character, Rhea Silvia, takes her name. Her father is King Numitor Silvius. Unfortunately, he is usurped by his brother. The new king, however, worries that his niece, who is Rhea Silvia, will have a son who may grow to oppose him, so he forces her to become a Vestal virgin, a priestess who guards Vesta's sacred fire and who must remain chaste. But the gods don't care about what a mortal king wants. There's still a destiny to be fulfilled here. And so, the god Mars, the god of war, comes to Rhea Silvia while she's serving as a Vestal priestess, and he impregnates her. And that very famous scene is depicted on the reverse of this beautiful coin from the 2nd century CE. It's a coin of the Emperor Antoninus Pius. It's actually a bronze coin called an as, and it's a fairly big coin too. You can see the figure of Rhea Silvia here sleeping, while from above, Mars is descending. The helmet, the spear, the coming down from the heavens, it's all kind of a giveaway. Now, Mars doesn't mess around here, and Rhea Silvia actually delivers twin boys, a virgin birth, of course, and she names them Romulus and Remus. When her uncle discovers this, he orders the infants to be killed, but obviously the story cannot end here, so through a series of events, the twins are put in a basket and sent down the Tiber River, where they float along, ultimately coming to rest against a tree on the shore. And it's here that the legend, the mythology, really ramps up. A wolf, a she-wolf, which is, of course, the animal of Mars, finds the basket along the shore of the Tiber and protects the infants, even nurses them. And that story is depicted on the reverse of this 2nd century BCE coin, a Republican coin. You can see the wolf here, very lovely, with the 2 infants below her. You can see the fig tree. You can even see a woodpecker in the tree, which is another symbol of Mars. And off to the side here is a figure. This is a shepherd stumbling upon this amazing sight. His name is Faustulus, and he takes the infants and raises them. Eventually, the boys grow up and they learn their true identity. And when that happens, they do 2 important things. First, they rescue their mother, Rhea Silvia, from captivity. Second, they restore their grandfather, Numitor, to the throne of Alba Longa. Those things done, they return to the area by the Tiber to found their own city. Because remember, these are men with the blood of founders in them. But unfortunately, we see a theme here develop that really haunts Rome for a lot of its history. That is the concept of brother against brother, of civil war, really. We saw it with Numitor and his brother, and we see it again now between Romulus and Remus. They disagree about where exactly to build the city. Romulus wants to build it on a certain hill called the Palatine, but Remus wants to build it on another hill called the Aventine. They argue, and Romulus ends up killing Remus, and he builds his city on the Palatine. He calls it Rome, after himself, obviously, and he becomes King Romulus, the first king of Rome. Now, how Rhea Silvia factors into all of this is obviously the subject of the novel. Her lineage, her years of living as a captive, the return of these sons, and then what happens between them, all against the backdrop of mythology and legend and Rome. It's really powerful stuff. And in the novel, it is Rhea Silvia, the priestess, who brings the flame of Vesta to the spot where the temple is ultimately built in the Forum. And when she does this, she prays to Vesta Eterna, or Eternal Vesta. And that's a concept or a name that we can see on the reverse of this imperial coin. We see the figure of Vesta holding a scepter in one hand and the palladium in the other. And of course, the words Vesta Eterna above that. Eternal Vesta, who protects the eternal city. So this has been a very, very general overview of the founding of Rome, or more specifically, the founding of Troy, of Lavinium, of Alba Longa, and then of Rome. It's a big story with different traditions, different sources, and different ways to tell it, but this should give you a basic understanding, especially if you're new to this subject matter. In any event, since we started here with a Trojan altar, we'll end with a Roman altar, as on this reverse of this gold coin called an aureus, another imperial coin from the time of Titus. This is actually Eternitas, which is the personification of eternity, offering into an altar. So you can see that coins offer a way for Rome to spread its story and the message that it is the eternal city. There's a continuity there that extends into the future, yes, but also into the past. And of course, the ultimate expression of that sense of perpetuity, of eternity, is embodied in the eternal flame of Vesta. The same way that the Trojans believed the Palladium, that statue of Pallas Athena, was the guardian of their city, the Romans believed that the sacred fire of Vesta protected their city, and that's one reason why the Palladium was kept in the Temple of Vesta. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the novel Rhea Silvia, and if you go on to book 2 in the series called Tarpeia, you'll find another video showing some coins from that story. So until next time, take care.